This week's guest is writer, producer, and rapper, early adopted, aka Mike Dunphy.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Like we had just spoken before we started recording, but other than the daylight savings time change
Yeah.
and adjusting to it getting dark out like 3 hours after I wake up, I can't complain, bro. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've like like doing this podcast has been like a whole thing for me this year. It's like really kept me busy, like organizing it and stuff. So I feel like, while the world's going a little bit mad in the background, this has sort of given me something to focus on.
Yeah, dude, it's so sick too. And I saw the episode you did with Sage,
Yeah.
so that was tight. And yeah, I'm a fan of what you're doing, man. It's cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, right back at you. Obviously, I'm a fan of your stuff.
Oh, cheers, man. Thank you.
Obviously, I first heard about you as a rapper. So we'll start there.
Sure.
What were your sort of music influences growing up? Was it hip hop or was it other stuff? Or
Yeah, I mean, I would say originally it was actually other stuff, like I was pretty, admittedly, I was pretty like closed off to music early on. A lot of my friends, a lot of my peers seem to have like been lucky enough to get into music or be influenced from like a very young age.
yeah,
I wouldn't say that's the case with me, to be honest. Like I think my parents were pretty like strict. Like parental advisory stickers were not, they weren't down with it. They were trying to shield me from all the world's ills, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So like I don't know, my earliest memories would just be from, getting shit from kids at CDs at middle school, like 6th grade, like people that would be like trading or burning CDs and shit. And at the time that was mostly like pop punk shit, you
yeah,
know. I would say like I don't know, MXPX was like for some reason one of my favorite bands. I still really like them, but I think it was like just getting that sort of whatever I could get my hands on. So I don't know. Yeah, I think I started out as like a pop punk kid. I like Newfound Glory. I liked a bunch of shitty poppy bands, but I mean some of it I still like. You know what I mean? But I think it started there, and then also the parents that would like the cool parents, like that's how I would be at like a homie's house, and they were the ones that were cool to buy the CD with the parental advisory sticker. So I
yeah.
was into like Corn and Limp Biscuit and all that bullshit, like you know. Um, so yeah, that's like kind of how I started and getting into music. I mean, my parents didn't play music, which I think is so cool that some artists, their parents were like playing music and they were influenced in the home. My dad he has good taste in music, so I would like steal some of his shit. He was listening to like Elton John and like Eric Clapton and shit that I think is still cool. And he had vinyl at like when I was young, so I do remember that. Um, so those are some of the earliest influences that I could draw back to, but it
Yeah.
obviously like changes over time. You know what I mean?
Just from like being a fan of yours over the last couple of years, it's I've noticed there's a lot of similarities between us, and
Yeah.
yeah, the pop punk thing was for me like I feel like sort of pop punk was the first music that I felt like I'd picked. It wasn't like my parents' music or my older brother's music. It was like the first sort of music that I was like, oh, okay, I like this for me. And
Yeah, bro.
funnily enough, I had Jarrett from Bowling for Soup on the podcast a month
Oh,
or
what?
two ago.
Damn, I'm sorry I missed that. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was really cool to chat with him. As
Dude, that's dope. I'm gonna have to check that one out because yeah, that's the same type shit. Like all that Tony Hawk music, like Tony
yes,
Hawk Pro Skater. I don't know about you, but that like as a kid, like that soundtrack was like pretty groundbreaking, I thought. And
yeah,
especially at a time where I don't know if this was I had this conversation with somebody else actually on a different podcast, but I don't know if it was the same for you guys with growing up, but like it was actually pretty like not accepted to like both rap and rock growing up for me,
Yeah.
like probably like early high school. So they used to say like you're either a banger, like a head banger, or you're a rapper. Like if even if you don't rap, you just like listen to fucking rap, you're a rapper.
Yeah.
So I remember like feeling like it, even though at that point I was listening to like Jedi Mind Tricks and like Wu Tang, but also listening to fucking Deftones and Korn, you
Yeah.
know. But I remember it feeling like, oh, that's not okay, because kids would like they'd like they were clicky. Like you could only be in one pocket. Um, so I thought that was interesting. But Tony Hawk comes to mind on that soundtrack because he had hip hop and the pop punk shit
Yeah.
and some of the coolest shit too, like bands like Millencolin. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
song,
Yeah.
like No Cigar. Like that shit was fucking awesome, So I remember that being like a cool thing where it was like, oh, it's okay to like both. And kids were like, maybe at that time becoming more accepting. I feel like kids are not like that anymore. Like kids are way more accepting, I feel
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's just interesting stuff. Like
Yeah.
how things change that way, you know what I mean?
Because I see groups of like kids now, and like you said, it's like a total mix where there'll be like some kids in sports clothes, some kids in like rocker clothes, and they're all hanging out. Where I feel like when I was growing up, it was very much like, if you're a fan of rock, you wear a hoodie and you hang out at this place, or and
Mm-hmm.
if you're into like rap music or sort of like garage music, I suppose over here was like, you were this thing, you wore these clothes, and you hang. Whereas like groups of kids now seem very mixed, and that's cool to see.
Yeah, 100%. I think we were probably just kids were mean. They were more mean,
Yeah,
like when we were growing up, you know what I mean? But it's interesting to hear you say that from being, overseas, because, it's a different culture. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So it's interesting to hear that it was similar. But no, I couldn't agree more. And it's a positive thing from what I see, right? Like kids are being more accepting of one another, and even in the music, like the younger artists that are coming out, you see kids that like doing like like hip hop shit, but dressed like alternatively with the green hair. And I think that's all awesome. Like kids should always feel, you know, okay to do what they want and not
yeah,
be judged or whatever. But yeah, when we were growing up, man, it wasn't like that. Kids were like getting beat up for like dumb shit like that,
yeah,
and which obviously isn't cool, but I think it's cool to be conscious of all that and aware of the change and
yeah.
watching it progress, really, I guess, as a society. But yeah, interesting nonetheless, for sure.
And so like, at what point did you think, well, I'm going to start making music? Like, was that as a teenager, or was that hip hop first, or did you start like doing other music?
Yeah, so I remember, I mean, my memory is so poor, but like I do remember like I it's weird because now as an adult I gauge my time references from like releases. I'll be like, oh, I released this album, and I'll tie that to memory, which probably isn't the best thing. But I remember it was later in high school where I like started kind of taking music serious. Before that, middle school, early high school was into hip hop, and we were like ripping instrumentals from like Napster and like rapping over fucking Mob Deep beats and beats that weren't ours and just complete trash. And I don't know, we had a place over here called Radio Shack, and it was just a chain of like electronics.
Yeah,
So you get like the crappy stick microphone that was like for the computer, and you would like we didn't know what we were doing recording. We would rap like out the speakers into the mic, so like feedback, the whole like all one
yeah,
track, no separate tracks. So like we did that early on, like in our buddy's bedroom when we were chilling at his house or whatever. We'd be skateboard kids, but like becoming infatuated with we're like hip hop at that time. And then later when it started to get, I guess, not even serious, but I remember playing like acoustic guitar with a buddy of mine, and I had a 4-track Tascam recorder, and we would just do these like funny songs. It was almost like just like bullshit freestyle. Like he would play and I would sing, and then we ended up making like these weird like I don't know if it was like some comedy shit. Like we were listening to fucking Adam Sandler at the time, like that type of shit he was doing. I hope none of that ever resurfaces, by the way. But we would basically make like songs about lunch ladies in school or teachers and just like jokey shit and just one track, us laughing, and I would burn the CD and I would sell it at school and made some good money for like a kid, just funny songs. And then we started to mix in like real songs or what we thought were real songs. So I guess it was kind of a mix at the time. It was weird, man. I was doing like that jokey shit, which people just laughed at as peers and students because it was relatable, and then some emo stuff that like was more serious acoustic stuff, and then there would be a mix of like hip hop shit on there too. But we were still jacking beats. We didn't have any beats, so we'd still be like stealing beats. But rapping on the 4-track like was what I thought was my most serious first endeavors, but it was all trash, obviously. And it was rapping over. I remember the ghetto boys beat. That was like one of the first joints I ever, like. We don't talk to police. Like I don't even know the name of the joint, but that was one of the first instrumentals I ever stole. And luckily nobody. I don't even think that shit didn't even make it to MySpace or the internet. So probably not looking at any lawsuits there, which is good. But yeah, so that was the earliest stuff.
Yeah.
And that was again, that was like complete trash. But that was late high school is when I started to really kind of, I like doing this, and it was like I found myself really enjoying it. And I think I was blissfully ignorant to think that I was good when I wasn't. But it was what that thought that made me want to pursue things, and sometimes that naivete helps as a kid because you think you're good, but you're not. But you're like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you're just like excited about the world, and you're just going for it. So I had a lot of that as a kid. I was very like motivated and stoked. And not to say that I'm not anymore, but like I'm older now. I'm a little more jaded. But back then I was like, yeah, this is sick. Let's go for it. And so that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
But I feel like that's so important though, isn't it? It's that little bit of, like you say, sort of childish confidence, and then like you say, oh well, the stuff we made was trash, but it's like, but at least you were making something. Like I feel like the first step to anything is doing it. As like a friend of mine always says, you can have like a million ideas, but as long as you make a few of those ideas like reality, that's the important thing. And I feel like, I produced like videos and different stuff for years that was trash. It was rip off of other things I'd seen, ripped off of Jackass or whatever. But,
dude, same thing.
But it made me pick up a camera, and it made me sort of learn how to edit and all this stuff that I do now in a different way, but it all built to that, whereas I lots of people don't do a thing in the first place, to build from.
Yeah, that's very true. And just to agree with your point, in a testament even more so to the Jackass thing.
Yeah,
I forgot we had a Jackass thing during this time too. We called it butt cheek, and no lies. So like, exactly, just ripping stuff off.
Yeah.
Jackass butt cheek, and we did the same thing with the Hi8 camera. But I think that's cool in a way because you're a kid, you have no idea, you're just emulating people that you look up to.
Yeah.
And that's with art, music, video, whatever. You don't have anything to draw from other than the people that you look up to, right? So you're just excited.
Yeah.
You're excited to first know that any of this alternative subculture exists. And I was a punk kid. I liked to skateboard. I was like, fuck going to school and all that shit. So it's relatable, and you find like, music and stuff that you relate to, even if it ends up being trash later. But I agree, man. I mean,
Yeah.
even now there's a bunch of, there's people, I'm sure both of us know as adults, that like are actually very talented people but are afraid to put stuff out. And I don't know, maybe subconsciously learning how to do that as a kid and like almost failing, like
Yeah.
learning that shit's what you put out sucked, but learning that kind of self-awareness and trying again. Yeah, I think it's important. And I'd imagine if you didn't do that as a kid and you tried to just jump in as an adult where you're more anxious and you're more hyper aware of like your failures, or you cared more, I'd imagine that would be much harder for adults that didn't get into it when they were kids. So I think there's value there. I
Yeah.
definitely do.
Like you say, that was sort of like late high school you were doing that. So at what point did do you feel like was the first thing that you were proud of, or that you
Proud of?
Yeah, or or that was more like a finished product that you wouldn't describe as trash, basically? Like when was the first?
It's funny. I look back at like all my stuff and I'm like, oh, it's still kind of trash. But, I think that having a little bit of that with every project, I think is important, because if you think you're the best and you're the man, then you probably wouldn't have any like desire to move, like try harder or whatever. But yeah, so the first thing I remember being proud of was probably the first album for Early Adopted, which came out in 2009. It's called Let's Be Honest. And I can be honest, which is weird, but with myself, and say that there's still some stuff on there that I think is good, which is cool. Yeah. There's a lot on that record that I don't think is good, but like I was like 18. So that was after high school. That was like my freshman year in college, I'm pretty sure. But that was my first time, like, I just become acquainted with like Sage's music.
Yeah.
He was a huge influence on me, and especially I grew up in Massachusetts, but right near Rhode Island. So around that time, I had become heavily influenced by like him, Slug, like the God Loves Ugly shit was big for me. So before I was like into Jedi mind tricks, and I was like Socrates philosophies, fucking, just like rhymes like that about killing people and shit. But I was never, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like murder rap. But yeah, so I remember like around that time became heavily influenced with the fact that this like alternative, more poetic, sad emo type rap existed. Because remember, as like an emo, fucking MXPX, no effects kid, like learning that, oh, this is okay. The people are doing this, Doomtree, like acts like that. That was some of the earlier stuff I found. And then, so yeah, 2009, that was the first time I was going to college, but I was putting like student loan money towards studio time. And I was like, obviously really irresponsible shit, but a record did come out of it. And I remember getting the box, like pressing the CDs and getting all the like the artwork done. And that was a big moment for me, because it was the first time that I had saw the product come to fruition, and you see it in the packaging, and it just feels good. It still feels good. Like I love that aspect of it, and it's because it takes a long time to make a record. And so yeah, Let's Be Honest was the first time I felt like I was the man, and I was like, this shit's good. But again, probably too much. Like I thought I was pretty arrogant as a kid. Like I was like, this is sick, and it wasn't that sick. There was a couple good songs on it, but it was like the fucking record was 20 songs long, which is way too long nowadays. But I was excited. It was good quality. I was going to the studio. The beats were original. So I made a big step from like Napster stealing beats to like finding a local producer that lived, I was in Salem, Mass, and he lived down the street, and he would come over. And so, that was the first time that I felt like accomplished, I guess, with music,
Yeah. You say when you sort of discovered Sage and like atmosphere and stuff,
Mhm.
how did you discover them?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember. I remember this, like, because I don't remember shit, but like, there's pivotal moments that I remember throughout my life.
Yeah,
And there was a kid named Danny Nocon. Shout out to Danny. He's a good dude I went to high school with, but he was really up on hip hop shit. So, man, I can't tell you the year, but it was, yeah, it was later high school, maybe junior year or something. Um, which again, I feel like maybe is late because I feel like I talked to people that I respect as peers, and they're like, "Yeah, I was getting into hip hop when I was like fucking 12," you know, and I wasn't. I was like later, but probably junior, maybe junior year high school or something, and he had burnt me a CD, and I remember it had so many dope songs I'd never heard before, and it was like, you ever get the burnt CDs from friends and it's all Sharpie? The whole thing's covered with the
yeah,
number one. So it's like all the titles and the track titles are Sharpied on, and the whole shit is just full. And it was like Black Star, it was like Dead Prez, it was like all this cool hip
yeah,
hop, like early quality. Um, but I remember that I was mowing my dad's lawn, and I was mowing his lawn, and I had the Discman, and not Strange Family, Sage Francis Crack Pipes came on, and that was on that record. And I believe he also had like Fuck You Lucy on there. But I like remember as a younger dude
yeah,
when Sage Crack Pipes came on, that shit like blew my mind, you know, because I had never heard anything like that before, you know, because it's kind of like an avant-garde. Even now it's still very like abstract, you
yeah,
know, but so dope. Like just how erratic the beat was and how crazy it was, and um, the poetry, like the level of writing that was in there was something I always. It was the only thing I was good at in school was writing. It was the only thing I was good at was English. So I like to write. I appreciated good writing even as a youth, and I remember that shit blowing my mind. And so that was the time where I was like, I transitioned from thinking, oh, it's okay to like rap like this, you know. And it's like, again, I'm so young that I'm still at this point trying to find out who I am as an artist, and like, you know, other than just emulating people,
yeah,
because yeah, I'll be honest, like some of that earlier shit I was probably emulating those guys, you know what I mean? And I think we're always even now still progressing as artists. You're trying to like, I mean, I think I know who I am as an artist, but I'm saying like it's cool to evolve and always change and to watch that evolution. But yeah, back then that was the moment where I became an emo rapper probably.
yeah. It was for me. I heard it was one of the Punkaramas, and it had
Dude, yes.
the video for trying to find the
Yeah.
balance
Yeah.
was like the MP3, the MP4, like sort of embedded in the disc, and I was
Wow.
just like, what the fuck is this, man? And it like
Yeah.
a similar thing where I was like, at that point to me, sort of, you know, hip hop for the most part was either the little bit of new metal or
Yep.
like sort of, you know, Eminem and Dr. Dre and the sort of the more mainstream stuff, you know.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
crazy because I just spoke with somebody else. Shout out John. He's Topics Under the Stairs, different podcast, a friend of mine. But Punkorama for him was, I mean, that shit was a lot of people, like that touched a lot of people. And the fact that they put Trying to Find a Balance on there is very interesting because I bet a lot of people had that same reaction where they're
yeah,
like not used to, but it fit because it was like him and Sage, you know, they both had releases on Epitaph. I think that album was on Epitaph, which was like a
yeah,
punk, like, you know, I don't know if you call it punk, but like whatever genres, you know what I'm saying, like heavier rock
yeah,
label. So yeah, that type of stuff was like it was different at the time, you know. It was like crossing those boundaries without being corny. Cause like let's face it, most of the new metal shit was corny.
yeah,
The rap rock, you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, like I still love Deftones. I don't I think Deftones like they're still one of my favorite bands.
yeah,
Um but a lot of the new metal guys are not around anymore. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's a reason for that. But
Or
so
they're
yeah.
just like Limp Bizkit, and they have just turned themselves into a meme, basically, haven't they? With this whole dad vibes thing, and it's just
Yeah, yeah, they're weird because I feel like now they're just accepting that they're almost a joke, you know.
yeah,
And but again, like $3 bill, y'all. I still will say that that is a fucking awesome record. And like I try to be conscious of like, you know, as a 34-year-old guy being like, okay, do I like this because it's nostalgic and I liked it when I was in 6th grade, or is there still some value here? And you know, there's records that I know are just trash and I just liked it because I was a kid. But that one I think is cool. Like I think there's elements of that that weren't being done at the time, and it wasn't so cringy. Where I mean, yeah, Limp Bizkit, some of their later stuff is so bad, like hot dog flavored water or what, like that shit is
yeah,
just all trash. But like you know, Corn Follow the Leader, I think
yeah,
that record's still cool. Ice Cube was on that record. But yeah, so there was that fine line of rap rock that like POD, like that shit ain't really, that shit wasn't, that shit's not gonna stand the test of time, unfortunately. But and again, it's all preference, right? So it's like
yeah.
doesn't matter. Like if that's the other thing, like if people like something, they just gotta own that shit. And like
Absolutely.
who cares?
There's some bands that like still tour in the UK. I don't know how much they tour in the States, like, but there's like Alien Ant Farm seem to tour every year, POD tour every year. And I'm like,
Yeah,
someone's going to these gigs, else they wouldn't be putting them on.
yeah, 100%. And it's like even that, like we like we'll make jokes about those bands, right? But guaranteed, Alien Ant Farm made more money than I did off of music. You know, so there's something to be said about those guys. They made a career out of it, you
Yeah.
know. And I bet even though we don't see POD and we laugh about it, those guys probably doing okay. They're probably getting, you know, money from when it plays in an elevator or like some shit, you know,
Yeah.
publishing somewhere, some movie. So like there's a level of success there if you want to look behind all that, that like man, you can never knock guys like that. They made, that's the dream, right? You made money off of music. So um but it is funny. It's cool to like I like that music changes, you know, and I
Yeah.
like that in a way I like I could look back at myself as a kid and be like, what the fuck was I listening to? You know what I mean? But some of the stuff did still stick with me, and it obviously always will. So
Yeah. Or maybe it led you to something else, or another band or another artist.
100%.
Then last year, yeah, I'm losing track of the years. Last year you released Tarred and Feathered through Strange
Mm-hmm.
Famous. Was that the
Yes.
first thing you put out through Strange Famous?
It was, yep.
Yeah,
That was the first one. And same, I keep losing the COVID thing. Was just
yeah.
like, man, where the fuck does the time gone, right? Um but yeah, that was the first record through Strange Famous. Yep.
So how did that come about? Like with
Um
obviously being a fan of Sage to sign into the label.
yeah, so that was for me that was like a beautiful thing, right? Because I had from afar had really loved Sage's work for so long, and the label too. I you know, Buck 65 and like all the like Prolific, who's now Mopes,
Yeah,
who's like my boy now, which is so sick, you know. Um, but it's cool being as a young kid, and then that was like a personal accolade of mine, you know. Like I just really like I'll be 100% like growing up in that album that I made in 2009. I always wanted to get on Rhyme Sayers,
yeah,
or I wanted to be on Strange Famous, and any like indie rapper in that little pocket that lies, they're fucking lying if they say they didn't want that. That was the shit, you know? Like those were the two that you wanted to be on or aspire to be. So um getting Sage's attention, however it happened, I'm just appreciative. And you know, I think I don't know when he even knew who I was, but I used to bug him all the time. You know, I used to fucking like I would go to shows in Providence in 2014. I gave him my record, and I probably did it to him before then. Um, Emailing him trying to get on tour or whatever. But I mean, let's face it. I think there's like a certain point you gotta work on your own to get to a point where anybody notices anybody. So I you know I respected that, and But I do remember 2014, he got back to me. I gave him the record at the Met or something at a show, and he tweeted me and was like, "Yo, this is dope." And I really like your singing, he told me. So I'll never forget that. That was nice. And still 2014, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like fuck yeah, it was big. It was nice to hear. I was still, relatively younger or whatever. So that was how that happened. And then trying to think, we just kind of kept in contact, and then the opportunity came about. I think he just liked the idea that I to up to that point, and still now, I've just always done it all myself, right? So
Yeah.
they didn't have to do anything really, and I think Sage even told me that he was just appreciative that like I came with him with to him with the record already done, artwork, it was mixed, mastered, just ready to go, and I said, hey, here's this, do you guys like it? And they did. Storm, shout out to Storm, who like is the man behind
Yeah.
the curtain, like he's the dude. And I dealt with him mostly, but was, yeah, just appreciative that they received it well. And that was big for me, man. We did the 7-inch, and I had pressed vinyl before that, but like that was it was the first thing through the label.
Yeah.
And yeah, independent, like Strange Famous independent, but like even so, like that opened the door for so many people that hadn't heard of me. And it was just nice, man. It made me proud. Like I said, it was
Yeah.
like a personal thing for me. And Sage was honest. He, those guys have been nothing but honest, and said, he's like, dude, you're already doing everything. He's like, there's nothing I can really do for you that you're not already doing yourself. And I was like, cool. I don't want anything. I just want to be like regarded as somebody that you trust musically and think is talented enough to be on this shit. So like for me, that was enough, and
Yeah.
but even so, he was being modest, because it opened a whole new brand of audience that hadn't heard me before. And so it's cool, man. And all those guys are fucking awesome. They really are. Like that whole team, like I keep saying the word jaded, but like up until Strange Famous, and there was a couple other incidences, but like I was fucking jaded, man. Like I had some bad experiences with music and rappers and people just being shitty people, you know what I mean? So the reason why Sage, is hard to get on his radar, I think, I don't want to speak for him, but it's like I don't think those guys really fuck with people that aren't their friends,
Yeah.
because they've gone through it, and they know that it's like it's dangerous to do that, in terms of trusting people. And like people are just shitty in the music industry, right?
Yeah.
They just are. It's a known fact. That's the truth. So when I met all those guys, it was just refreshing. We all hit it off. We're all in a group chat now. Like we're all just homies. And I think I appreciate that the most about Sage and Storm and the label is that they're not gonna fuck with you no matter how good you are musically if you're not a decent person.
Yeah.
And that's big. I think that's big for business. I think that's big for the operations and how smoothly things work. But on a human level, it's just big too, because I don't want to fuck with anybody either that's not a decent person. So
Yeah.
not at this point in my life. Before, when I was younger, I might be like, oh, I want to feature, I want to go on tour with whoever. I don't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? So it's like in life, like your circle gets a little smaller as you get older. And I think that's how it's happened in music for all those guys and myself. So yeah, all those guys are very talented and have been through it. They've gone through the ups and downs of music, so everybody understands. And yeah, no, I'm appreciative, man. I really am. Because I think if I got on like a label when I was like fucking 17 or something, I'd probably be an asshole,
Yeah.
Because I would, even though I thought I was good and thought I was cool back then, if I got on a label when I was 17, I wouldn't have to have had struggled the way I did. So I definitely wouldn't have appreciated it, It's like getting it later in life, almost like 10 years later. Like I had to work for it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So So yeah, I'm happy, man. It was very cool. And again, like regardless of what happens with the label, it was a personal accolade for me. It was something I could check off my list and be
Yeah.
like, that's dope. I did it. And um they've been nothing but great to me. So I'm happy, you know.
You speaking about music projects, you just started like performing in a band as well as early adopters, but what Odacoda is it?
Oh, Dakota, yeah. So
Yeah,
that was born out of COVID. Those guys are just like my best friends I grew up with, like um since I was early high school. All those guys are like my boys, you know. So there's no real pressure on that project. We just kind of, again, like, you know, that was the type of music I liked, and still, like, I still listen to that type of music more than I do hip hop. Like, you know, post hardcore type shit is like my favorite. You know, like Touche Amore, Balance and Composure, um, Mineral, Old Mineral, like bands, emo shit like
yeah,
that, you know? So those guys have always had an influence on me growing up because they've always been into that. Census Failed, um, Seosin, like those guys always love that shit. So they've influenced me along the way too, big time, showing me bands growing up. Um, so I really trust their sensibilities, and we all align on like what we think cool, not hip hop, but like that post hardcore type stuff. And that stuff happens very organically, but at the same time, it's just chill. Like it was a studio project. We're just casually gonna start releasing videos and singles, but I really love the songs. Like I think the songs are really good.
yeah,
We're starting to we shot another video the other day. So yeah, I don't know that much will come after that, but I just think it's important for a couple of reasons that we do that. And one of them being the guitarist in my band, Brian. He's one of my best friends, like I said, but he has brain cancer. So yeah, he's like 32 now, but he's got stage 4 brain cancer. So he's going through it, and that's important for reasons I can't even explain.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like just making music with him. You know, it's obviously cathartic for him. It gets his mind off of it for a minute, but capturing that magic that in the bottle, you know what I mean? Cuz
yeah,
you know, so it's been a difficult time, but I think for me I'm thankful that we get to do that. And I think it'll be dope to have all those songs. And we've made music before. Like he's been on projects of mine playing guitar, and I was in another band with those guys back in the day, but this is probably the most official thing I've got to do with him. So that's
yeah.
exciting, you know.
That's cool. And like you say, like capturing that bit of nostalgia as well, that you are all old friends and stuff. You know, getting a band together. It's almost, you know, it's almost sort of corny in a way, isn't it? It's like
Oh yeah,
you know,
100%. Yeah, and I think that's what's nice about it too, right? Because like to this day with the hip hop stuff, the early adopted stuff, I put so much pressure on myself that sometimes it's like debilitating, and it's not good. But it's part of being an artist, right? Is like stressing yourself out to the point of like making the best product you can, but then finding the balance of like, okay, I've got to let this go. I've got to give it to whoever wants it, even, you know, if there is anyone, who knows. But with this stuff, it's no pressure really, you know, because we're not going into it with any sort of expectation. We're just doing it for fun and like that alone. So like also there's a lot less words to write in in an emo fucking post hardcore song. So that's like you know what I mean? Like a rap, like a 16 bar rap is a lot of words. And then the emo shit, you just like, who knows? It could be fucking 8 words. It can be the whole shit.
yeah,
So yeah, it's fun, man. It's really fun. And yeah, like you said, just capturing a little bit of that childhood nostalgia as a grown man. It's just like, yeah, you try to never lose that.
yeah.
And you try to hold on to it, a little bit of it if you can, you know.
Yeah. And that, like, so the music video has a similar vibe as well, doesn't it? You know that it's like you're all playing together as well, and it's all in like a live. Is it a living room or something? And
Yeah,
it
yeah, our
still
buddies.
has that vibe, you know.
Yeah, just not no overproduction. You know, like you said, just
Yeah,
we just shot in his living room and used the natural sunlight. And my buddy Kevin, who was very good at filming, like killed it filming. I edited that one, and but yeah, I think part of it is that just the simplicity. I think hopefully other people appreciate, you know. But again, it's not something we're just doing it for us, really.
yeah.
So hopefully people dig it. If they don't, like, I don't care. You know, it's just something I can look back on when I'm like, I don't know, how long am I gonna live? Probably 60, and and be like, oh, that was with my buddies. You know, so
Yeah.
it's cool, man.
I think it should feel like that with sort of all artistic endeavors. Really, is that you do it for you first.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Because
agree.
you know, it could easily be devastated if you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to get this audience and then
Oh
nothing
yeah,
happens. But if
100%, bro.
you make something that you're proud of and that, like, you know, or, you know, you may not be proud of in the future, but if you're proud of it at the time and everything, that's
No,
the
you're
most important thing, isn't it? You know?
you're so right. And I'll be honest, I've done that as an artist. I've I've given my hopes up too many times, you know, and that's part of learning. That's part of just like humbling yourself. Like I explain it to people like I've been through so many various marriages and divorces with music, expectations that get crushed, and then great things happen out of nowhere. So I don't think I'd ever appreciate the good without the terrible, you know? And
Yeah,
it's true, but I do that's like maybe that's a piece of advice for like younger artists. Don't man, don't put all your eggs in the basket, you know what I mean? Like uh be okay with it like being for you first. First the quality is going to be better. The content if you're just being natural and you're not like having these like alternative expectations externally,
yeah,
your music's gonna be better. But you also won't want to jump off a building when it doesn't blow up. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah,
I,
100.
that's what I always say to people. You know, starting anything is do it for you. And if you're
100%.
not, especially starting something, if you're not doing it for you, then there's no
Yeah.
point.
It's not gonna be good probably,
No,
you know? If you're trying to like we were talking about, like we always as youths, as younger people, we always emulate the people we like because
yeah,
we don't know anything else. But if you're like older and you should have like kind of fallen into your own niche and you're trying to make music just to be a part of a certain market or to make money or to whatever, that shit ain't gonna last. That's gonna be like POD, bro. That ain't gonna last, you know? So, no offense to POD, because Southtown, that's a banger.
yeah. um, and so the thing you do that's not music related is you write and produce the Invisible Choir True Crime podcast.
Yes,
How did you get
yes.
involved in that?
So, I had been doing video work um, outside of music, like professionally, uh, shooting corporate stuff, video editing as
Yeah,
well. Um, for for a while, for a couple years, as soon as I realized that I had to be an adult and I couldn't, you know, uh, just do music, because I'll be honest, like there was a while there where I was trying to make my living off of music when I was not equipped to do so, you know? So that's another thing. That's a way to be devastated real early on, you know? And maybe you don't learn that till you try, but I definitely learned the fucking hard way, you know? Like trying to fucking tour, but you quit your job to tour. Like you're fucking yourself big time, you know what I
yeah,
mean? You can't do that until you're a certain level, you know? Like you're gonna come home crying. So and broke. You'll be very broke. But I've been humbled down the road a bunch of times, and I'm stubborn, and nobody could ever tell me shit. So I'm the type of dude that I like to think I'm a little smarter now, but I would have to do that, fail, fall on my face to maybe 3 times to be like, oh shit, I should probably figure something else out. So among coming home from terrible tours, etc., I got a job at a place up in Revere, which is near Boston, editing, doing corporate video. I learned a lot. It was a contract gig, so I could still leave and tour if I had to. So I set myself up good for the first time where I had money, I was paying my bills, and if I gave them notice, I could go on tour. So you come home and you don't, you're not devastated. So that was good for a while, but I hated it. It's just, it was awful. It was boring. Excuse me. But you don't, I always liked doing video. I always loved video editing, all that stuff. But maybe I get bored of stuff real quick too. I feel like I learned what I need to learn, and then I'm just fucking done with it,
Yeah.
And I took a lot of good out of that position. But anyway, not to talk too much on that. It was COVID hit. I was working for those guys, and I had time at home, but I was lucky enough to have work because we had residual editing from old projects. So I was editing from home from like TeamViewer. I'm sure you're familiar, TeamViewer, and we were still able to like access the studio's computers. So I was lucky. I had work during COVID, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I hate this shit, dude. I don't want to, like you have time to reflect, And I was driving 2.5 hours in traffic prior to COVID with a stick shift in Boston traffic. So going like this with one leg, fucking wanting to put a bullet in my head, And when you're going, you don't really reflect on it because you're just in the fucking rat race type, routine, and you're just doing what you think you have to do. But when I was sitting there, I'm like, man, I don't want to go back there after COVID. I don't want to fucking do this anymore. So I just going on Indeed and going on Instagram, and something came up for Sword and Scale. So I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're like one of the biggest true crime podcasts. So they were hiring 2 writers, and I saw that around this time. So I applied. I made an episode for them. And mind you, I've never done this sort of work before, but I'm an audio guy.
Yeah.
Recording myself for years. I can use Pro Tools. I like to think I'm a good writer. I always liked true crime. And I'm like, yeah, let me try this. So I did it. And I got to the 3rd round of interviews, and out of 300 people, and they picked 2 guys. I was the 3rd, and they picked 2 other guys. So, dude, I was devastated. I was fucking... It was like maybe the same feeling of like coming home from tour and your lights are shut off, which has happened before. But it was a blow because, you just want to get out of your current situation. You saw something that might be like a really cool thing. The pay was really good. And like it would have been way more money than I was making. And I was like, fuck. And I didn't get it. And I remember going to the convenience store next to the studio I was working at, and I bought a pack of cigarettes, and I had stopped smoking like mad long ago, and I just started like cranking butts, and I was like, fuck, man, this sucks, And so whatever, I went through that it was quick self-loathing for like a week, but then like miraculously, like for some reason, a friend of mine was like, hey, have you heard of an Invisible Choir? And I was like, no, I haven't actually. Who's that? And she's like, oh, this podcast is sick. You should check them out. And they're hiring 2 writers. And it was like a week later. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's really odd. So shout out to her. Sandy is the reason I got the job, because I would have never known about this podcast. But it turns out that Mike, who's the man, he's my boss now. He's a great dude. He used to write for Sword and Scale, but he started his own, right? So I hit him up, and they were like ground level. They still are, like nowhere. Sword and Scale is fucking huge. This was like low, like just terms of audience, like wasn't blown up, still isn't huge. But I was so defeated that I was like, hey man, it was the same process, like make an episode, submit it. I was like, listen, dude, like I told him the whole Sword and Scale shit. I was like, here's this one I made. I was like, I'm not gonna make a new one because I just put my whole like life and soul into making this other shit, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So I was like, just know that it says Sword and Scale. It's not gonna say Invisible Choir, and I was like, I hope you like it. And it was, I was so defeated that I was like, he's probably not gonna fucking, even like it or whatever. That's why I was like, here's this one. Call me if you like it. And thankfully he did, and he said he liked it. And yeah, fast forward, that's about a year, almost a year now I've been with them. So I was able to, probably in the most ideal situation, like I didn't even leave that video job completely. Like I still do some stuff from home for them. So I do like car ads, like Herb Chambers, like when you hear like on the radio, fucking Veterans Day sales event, like I edit those, That's a little like behind the scenes for people. That's real shit. Like a lot of rappers have to work jobs. Sorry. Yeah. People that don't know, like if you're going to be a rapper, you probably have to have a real job too. But I'm thankful, dude, because I do that. That's like real part-time, but then I do the podcast. And so I work from home now, and I'm, I could probably never write 20 pages about any other topic, but it genuinely interests me, the psychology behind it, of why people do what they do. So I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate, and I'm grateful. I'll say thank you to Mike because he took a chance on me. I think he saw the writing ability. He saw that I was with no experience, though. Like I said, I had never done this before. So
yeah,
it was nice of him to take a chance on me, because I'm sure there were people that applied that were maybe more well qualified than me. But I think he saw the talent there, I hope, and he changed a lot for me. So there's a lot of opportunity even for growth.
Yeah.
And as an independent musician, I like to work with the little guys. I want to see him win. I want to be a part of like ground up type shit, where like that one over there, Sword and Scale, I would have been a little fish in the big pond. They probably got 20 writers, but like over here we're like three dudes. Like there's only 3 of us doing this shit. So it's really dope. It's the ethos are the same. We take a very compassionate approach on how we do things. And the other guy, Ryan, who's a great writer, he's in an awesome band too. Sun Spear, he's like a metal kid. And so everybody just relates, and everybody's chill, and the boat is moving good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that whole story. I hope it wasn't too long-winded, but
no, man,
that was
interesting.
Yeah, that's how I got to where I'm at now. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
No, because I really enjoy it. Like you posted about it, and I'm always interested in finding a good true crime podcast. I think like after I listen, because you were like, "Oh, I wrote this episode, check it out," and I gave it a listen. And I think I messaged you straight away and was like, "Oh, it's nice to find a good true crime podcast because there's so much trash out there."
Oh yeah, no, I know, and I appreciate you saying that. I remember you messaged me, and yeah, there is, because the podcast space is just huge now, and it's so weird how it blew up, but it is. It's just huge. So people obviously see that there's money to be made, and people that probably aren't equipped to even do one. So it's like become what rap has become. It's just oversaturated, Yeah. And I think the good ones really stand alone. Like whatever algorithm they got going on works pretty well. The ones that are good pop up first. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of trash out there for sure.
No, so yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I like listening to it when I can hear that it's you doing one of the voices.
Oh shit! Yeah, dude.
It makes me smile whenever it's like reading out like a MySpace post or something.
Oh,
it's like,
shit,
that's your
dude.
voice.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that's so funny because I think only people that know me from music know that. So I've only had people that are like, I guess, yeah, of course, my friends.
Yeah.
But like early adopted fans will hit me up and be like, "That's so funny, you did the fucking ICP voice,"
That's
because whatever. But that is funny, man. Yeah, I enjoy it. I would like to do more shit like that, because yeah, just funny, and that's fun, dude. Like then I have to like take a step back while I'm doing that and be like, man, I'm like cracking up when I'm doing that shit. Like I'm doing the ICP fucking voice for the pot, and like I'm like, dude, I'm grateful, because again, if I wasn't at that job where I wanted to kill myself, I might not be as happy as I am right now because I appreciate it, right? So
yeah.
I just try to be conscious of like whenever I get bummed out or I get sad about thinking I should be further along, and whether it be music or life or whatever, I try to think about where was I at a year ago? Where was I at where was I at 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And if I'm going like this, even if it's small, I have to be happy. I have to be grateful, and luckily I've made those little progressive steps, and it's not easy because like I'm not a person. Like I'll never have a 9 to 5 job. I can't do it. It's not in my human fiber. Like, so I have a lot of respect for people that do and they climb that ladder because that's a harder. I don't know if it's harder, but it's more monotonous,
Yeah.
to climb a ladder like that. So I give props to people. My girl has been with the same company for 15 years. Like I have a lot of respect for somebody that can have that sort of patience to climb a ladder like that. I'm all over the place. If I don't like it, I'm fucking out, and I'll tell you I'm out. I don't care, So that's been a good thing and a fault of mine, but so but yeah, I think if people are like that, like me, and they want to be whether it's an entrepreneur or a contractor or a self-employed person, you've again, I don't want to say you have to work harder, but you have to be more creative. You've got to think outside of the box that is not set up for you that way, because it's not. Like society's not set up for you to be a free thinker. It's not set up for you to be creative. It's set up for you to go put an application in and work for somebody else and get somebody else rich. That's how the world is. So if you want to get not even rich, if you want to pay your bills by yourself, you got to get creative. You got to have like 5 different hustles or whatever. So I've finally got to a point, man, where I can do music, I can tour, and I can pay my bills, and I'm happy. And I work from home. My little French bulldog sits next to me, and but it took me years to get there. It took me years to figure that out. Part of it just being stubborn, but part of it being trial and error. So right now things are fucking great financially, or like just living, like
Yeah.
quality of life. I'm not in traffic. I'm happy. So
That's perfect, man. That's sounds like you've got it, you got it going well at the moment. That's nice to hear,
yeah, thank you, bro. I just hope it stays that way. I don't
Yeah.
want to, I'm knock on wood, I hope it, shit always changes, shit happens, but
Yeah.
right now at this moment I have nothing to complain about. So
But the other thing of like just talking to you for an hour, I feel like even if shit does change, you'll adapt and you'll find something else. That seems like what you seem to be quite good at is,
yeah, thank you, man.
making something work for you.
Yeah, that means a lot, man. I like to think so,
Yeah.
I like to think so. And I think I've gone without money for a long time. I was piss poor for a long time. I don't have a rich dad. I don't have, you know what I'm saying? So like but I always figured it out, I always found ramen noodles to eat. Fucking, if you want to drink, Colt 45s are $2. You know what I mean? So like I made it work. But again, going through all that shit, I don't ever want to go back to that.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be like a fucking 18-year-old kid, college dropout, sleeping on somebody's couch with no money. Like I don't, but if
Yeah.
I didn't do it, maybe I wouldn't appreciate it as much. And I did finish college, but fucking wish I could I wish I could get my money back and give the piece of paper back, like kept the receipt and you could return it like Walmart, but didn't do much for me.
Well, you got some studio time with that student loan.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. Probably the record wouldn't have came out, but I think it cost me, quadruple 1,000 more the price. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. But you gotta,
the
you gotta
interest is a
look on.
killer on that though.
Oh fuck yeah, bro. Oh my god. But yeah, you gotta learn the hard way, or at least I always did. So
Awesome. Where can people find you if they want to find out about what you're up to and what you've got going on?
yeah, so early adopted across the board. Instagram is early adopted, one word. Twitter, whatever. But Instagram, I'm probably the most active on. But Facebook, that's all there. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm working on an EP now that hopefully is released sooner than later. And got some singles and a lot of videos coming out regardless of the EP. So back on it musically, things are going good. And then Invisible Choir, if anybody's interested in true crime, I would urge you to check out the podcast. It's something I'm very passionate about. I write almost all of the long form episodes that are like 45 minutes long. And yeah, so check that out. That's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But Invisible Choir is that little endeavor. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thanks ever so much for talking to me, Mike. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, dude, thank you, man. I mean, it's just nice that somebody wants to talk to me. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do so. And I know the time difference is way different. So it was cool I'm glad we made it happen, bro.
Wanna dream like Gene, in all black tee, all black jeans, my time is up. Kick my feet out from that railing, I wanted to fly just once. Leave my guts in San Francisco, bottom of the sea. Do not resuscitate or throw flotation devices to me.
You have to polish yourself, Mark.